Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for being here and start the ceremony. I'd like to call up to the microphone our firefighter chaplain, Anthony Capps. Chaplain.
Let us pray. Dear God, we lift all up to you that are still suffering from this attack on 9/11/2001. Place them in your comforting hands, Lord, to give them the comfort they need, not to forget, but to have peace to move forward. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Chaplain. At this time, Tim, would you come up and give us a pledge to the flag?
Please stand and remove your hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, now I can do my opening remarks. Today marks the 24th anniversary of the attacks on this nation and our way of life at the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and Flight 93. We're here to honor and remember those who performed the ultimate sacrifice so we can live free and enjoy the many liberties we have without fear of reprisals or retaliation. Also, let's not forget all the sacrifices our military personnel have endured keeping our national security threat at bay so we can live our lives protected and in peace. As we pay tribute to the 2,996 people who lost their lives on September 11th, I would like to remind everyone that the carnage and the destruction has not stopped. And today I want to address my comments to that subject matter. Today I would like to honor and remember them along with the victims of today. As of today, more than 140,000 responders are being monitored and treated for their illnesses as a result of 9/11. More than 100,000 first responders and civilians are suffering from 9/11 related ailments. As of today, over 5,000 responders have died from 9/11 related illnesses, more than ones killed that fateful day. 50,000 people are suffering for cancer alone from 9/11, and more than 370 New York City firefighters have died in addition to the 343. With the passage of time, it seems people's memories have diminished, and the passion for remembrance has failed. That is why ceremonies such as this are so important, that we keep their sacrifices alive and pray for those who are suffering. Thank you for being here tonight, this afternoon, and never forget. Okay, at this time, moving right along, I'd like to introduce the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Chris Fairchild, and if you wouldn't mind coming up and introducing the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. The start of this, it was said, think back where you were that day. And I was thinking on the way here, I was getting ready for work and had the TV on and saw what had happened to the first tower. And it was on a Today show, and they were interviewing some sort of scientist and just said, we got a break, and went to the first tower. And they're speculating of what happened and what are the chances that it was terrorism or just something happened with the plane that got off track. And I was watching it live when the second tower got hit. And for a moment, my mind couldn't process that was happening. And just for a quick moment, I thought, wait a minute, they said they didn't have video of the plane hitting the tower, but it just hit the tower. They just showed it. And I went, oh my God, it's the second one. And I started calling people and called my office and said, get home, get ready. This is a bad day. And then a couple days into it, my wife and I started talking about, do we go to New York and help? And Jeff Potter was just saying a friend of his went all the way from Seattle to New York City to help and just died of cancer. And, God bless all those people. I think about the level of hate that it took and what's been happening in our community just over this past week. I think about the young lady that was stabbed on that train. Yesterday, what's his name that was shot? Charlie Kirk was assassinated. All over people that just disagree with each other. And we just don't have that ability anymore. And when I think back to 24 years ago, the lessons that I wish we would have, that I felt like at the time we were learning, I remember feeling like everybody cheered for the president when he threw out the pitch at the baseball game. Like America stood up. And I thought, boy, you've woke the dragon. But it just didn't take long before we got back to where we treated each other the way we were before. And my hope is that, I'm not sure if that can stop, but in our little local community, those of us that are here, maybe for a little bit, just stop saying mean things on Facebook. Stop being so volatile and angry at each other and understand that so much of the way you feel is where you came from. And I know I have to do that because recently I've been getting frustrated and starting to say things that I wouldn't normally. So as Richie said, I hope we don't forget, and I hope we can, 24 years later, for a little bit of time, bring that back into Fluvanna. God bless all of you responders for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was thinking, I've spoken before, and it gave me a few minutes to speak. We say never forget, and I'll tell you a little story about your fire department here. Thought about how can we never forget, because we have enough bad things in this country to replace it, but nothing will replace 9/11. And so a lot of people suffer from cancer and other things, but a lot of families suffered from mental health issues and struggling. And unfortunately, suicide came into play too with what happened after 9/11 for people. And a small grassroots organization in Brooklyn started out of a lady who lived in a neighborhood and wandered into a firehouse and said, what can I do? And she started a program outside of the FDNY as a great counseling service, but they were overwhelmed. And it's called Friends of Firefighters. And it's gone today. She started it just on her own, and they depend totally on donations and fundraisers. So I became acquainted with this organization a few years ago, and right now, as we speak here, they're finishing up a ride in Ireland to support that organization. And I had a friend who's riding over there, and I brought it up to this fire department here in Virginia. And I say that because my friend was very surprised when he started getting donations from Virginia. Where are those coming from? And I threw it out here to the brothers and sisters of Lake Monticello Fire Department. And they picked up and out of their pockets, they reached in their pockets. We keep a discretionary fund for some money that we raise with some of our little fundraisers, and that's for us to get us things that we need. And those brothers and sisters said they would give up some of that money and make a donation too, as well as the money that came out of their pockets. And we were able to put together a significant donation and send it to the Friends of Firefighters in New York City who are going on. And what's special about them is they don't do just counseling of firefighters. They do counseling of the families, the wives, and particularly the children that were affected. And I think there were well over, I heard today, 1,000 children that were left fatherless just in the FDNY after that day of 9/11. So they have a job. They continue today. We support them today, and our firefighters here locally reached in their pockets and are supporting that. Hopefully we'll continue. Next year's 25 years, and maybe we can do something even a little bit bigger to help them and support them. But when we say never forget, I will urge you to do something, whatever it is. Find an organization, find something to support that truly never forgets the sacrifice of what was made on 9/11 and has been made every single day afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. What can I say? What has already been said. But I'd like to talk about what I remembered when I seen the second building come down, I said, they're in a hole. They tried to blow it up in '98, and in '98, the fire department every Sunday had multiple units drill come in there and scenarioed it and trained, and they knew when they got there exactly what they had to do. But the first explosion or attempt, it was an explosion, wasn't as effective, so the hate-driven thing that killed not only the firemen, but every children, old people, young people, white, black, yellow, just enormous amount of death. But in them halls initially was the firefighters. I usually choke up like that. Excuse me. Of course, I knew a lot of them, trained them, shared a few smoky hallways with them, and they were just different people. Just, they never hesitated. They went up, and they knew. So after that, they had a lot of funerals. So I couldn't make it up. I was recovering from a knee operation. So I made as many funerals, my wife and I, as I could. And it was sad. You see people you know, and you love them. You love them like a brother, or you just love them. And it was difficult. And they would be talking about how they just would not give up. When they were told to leave the building, Patty Brown refused the order, stating that I have 33 people here. I'm staying with them. I'm sure that went down the whole cadre of firefighters. And as they were talking to me, and I to them, and as they were getting assigned, as the things progressed, getting assigned stairwells, floors, accumulation, they were saying goodbye to each other. So I'd like to remember them and their families. And to what there was more, how can I say, sadness. We were going to funerals, seemed like every week. And you didn't see people for years, and it was just sad. So please remember those people, all the people, but particularly the firefighters, that never hesitated. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to open the microphone. Anybody would like to come up and say a few words, please?
My name is Maggie Cullinan. Probably more of you knew my husband, Jim Cullinan. And I'm just going to recount what my experiences were on 9/11. At that time, we lived on Long Island, and I worked at Stony Brook University, which was on the North Shore, and I was driving to work. And as I was driving, I was listening to 1010 News on the radio, and they announced that a small plane had gone into one of the towers. And they didn't really follow up with much more about it. I got to my appointment at the dental school, and as soon as I walked in, it was obvious that it was much more than a small plane. They announced that the Pentagon was hit, and she had, of course, a mask on. And she just widened her eyes and looked at me, and she said, "My brother works there." So she continued, of course. And at that point, then I went over to the main campus, and very shortly, the governor said that the campus was closed, all of the campuses in New York. So I drove home. Our daughter Jennifer, our youngest daughter, worked in New York City. And of course, she observed a lot of what had happened with the buildings and started walking home with the thousands of other people trying to figure out how to get home. At that time, she lived in Brooklyn. So they walked across the bridge. I don't know how long it took them. And she finally found her apartment, which also later on, a few hours later, one of my nieces found her way to Jennifer's apartment, or she would have had to walk probably 10 more miles to her house. And when she got home, she said they were just sitting outside in their yard, which was covered with dust. And the amazing thing was there were papers that flew out of some of the buildings, and on the papers were still Post-it notes. So flew all the way across the water, still with the Post-it note on it. And her fiancé, Kyle, he also worked right near the towers, and he unfortunately started to observe jumpers. And then he found his way to walk home to Brooklyn. And I found out a day or two later that my friend that I knew from kindergarten and was also a maid of honor at our wedding, Eileen Keegan Rice, she worked for Cantor Fitzgerald, which was one of the companies on the upper floors that lost, I believe, 400 to 500 employees. And her remains were found, so the family was able to have a funeral for her, which was a comfort. At that time, my husband, Jim, worked for the Knights of Columbus as an insurance agent, and the agency was in Farmingdale, which is further in Nassau County, where many, many first responders worked and were missing. And within days, I believe it was only like 2 days later, his agency decided to give $2,000 checks to any family that was missing a first responder. And he, as the agent, it was his job to go and visit each of these families. And I kind of think it was maybe 20 to 25 families he visited those first few days. The parents said to Jim they didn't want the money for him to give it to a family that had children, which he did. And he very rarely spoke about this, hardly ever mentioned it. So it was very devastating to him. So it's been 24 years, and we're very grateful to this fire department and rescue squad that they take the time to do this, to remember, to commemorate. So thank you to all of you. Okay.
Thank you, Maggie. I would also like to add that though he wasn't a member of the fire rescue, but he was a member of our board of directors, an at-large member. This past year, we lost Jim Cullinan a couple of months ago, and that was unexpected, at least for me. I mean, when I went into the house and, well, that's neither here nor there. All right, I'm sorry. Anybody else would like to please come up and, come on, sir.
Good evening. My name's David Small. I'm a teacher over at Fluvanna County High School, and I thought that I would, thanks. I thought that I would just let you know what happened in the hallways and classrooms at the high school this morning. So I've been teaching in Fluvanna for a while, and I think one of the things that inspires me there are the passion that my colleagues have for young people, not just their content areas, but their passion for young people. And so early this morning, my hallmates, Miss Vowles and Mitchell Pace, Melody Morgan, Elizabeth Pelicane, we're all sharing with each other what we're going to talk about that day. And we weren't directed to talk about certain things. We just felt it important to impart the story to kids born 2007, 2008, 2009, some 2010, and to make sure they knew this story. And I thought it was important for the community that's here to know that my colleagues, their own stories, their own presentations they came up with to tell students these stories. As I started to tell the story to my students, I told them, how many of you have parents or grandparents who tell you the same stories over and over? And they're like, yes. Well, when am I going to hear this story again? And I said, sometimes my own kids, I like to tell them those stories because they're silly stories that I want my son Connor and my daughter Erin to know throughout their lives. And some stories I tell them just because they're very important stories. And I want them to carry them in their heart, in their head, throughout their lives for their kids. And I said, today is the day I'm going to tell you important stories. And so we had a time to tell some of the most important types of stories, which are stories of courage, which are stories of self-sacrifice, which are stories of what you do in the face of the unimaginable, hard stories, and stories of triumph. So I tried to sprinkle that in within those 102 minutes of September 11th, tell lots of stories of things that I've read, things that I've heard from people to impart to those kids. And the kids I was speaking to, probably 15 through 18 years old. And I will tell you, their eyes were wide, and I'm sure that was happening in lots of other classrooms in the morning. I was careful of the things that I said. And last night when I was going to bed, I was thinking about what I was going to say. And I said, as their teacher, I carry a lot of responsibility, but one of those things is I don't want to steal their innocence too soon. And I know there are some images that steal innocence very quickly, that all of us have seen, that many of you have experienced. And so I was selective in the things that I talked about, but I said, those are things for your parents or your guardians or your grandparents to get together with them. And I feel like that's the appropriate place for some of those images. If they want to share them, they're shared. But I said the things we're talking about are hard things and important things. So we spent time doing that. One of the last slides I show for them is, I believe his name's Mike Cahu. I think he was with Ladder 28, and there's an iconic photo of him going up the North Tower steps in his turnout coat, and his eyes are pretty wide, and he's pretty sweaty, and there's water on the backs of sweat and sprinklers of people going down, and he's going up the stairs. So we took a little while to stare at his face, and he survived. He survived. I wanted to come up here for no other reason to let you know that the young people in Fluvanna, because of teachers, many teachers in the school, are making sure that important stories are told to the young people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to commend you and all the other teachers, because that's what we need. We can't let this ever be forgotten. And I like O'Hara's Bar right down there by Tower 2. Right, Steve? We've been in there a few times. Anyway, anybody else would like to come up? Come on, ma'am.
This year's speakers are not the same as last year. There really isn't much else to be said, and particularly, I didn't catch his name, but the teacher working with the youth. It's like many of you, I remember exactly where I was when it happened. We couldn't see it happen except on the TV, but we saw the smoke and the reactions of the youth. In my case, and particularly extremely at-risk youth. It's not what our media and our politics would suggest or have people believe. As I think was mentioned at the opening of the ceremony, it was the World Trade Center. And people of many other countries perished in the horror. It was not just about America. The world grieved with us. It shouldn't be about red or blue. And it's the statement I have made at other events, and I will continue to do so. We are red, white, and blue. And again, it was the World Trade Center. And the world grieved with us.
Thank you very much. Anyone else?
Last year I was here and I spoke about my experiences that day, seeing everything live and in person. But I have a bunch of guys that I grew up with in Brooklyn, and this particular friend of mine I know since I'm 5 years old in St. Vincent Ferrer in Flatbush, Brooklyn. And every night, me and my friends text each other complaining about the Yankees. This loss, that loss, this guy, you know what he does. So this morning, as usual, my friends texted remembrances of that day. And this is what my best friend Richie Rooney told me, who I know since I'm 5 years old. And I've heard this story before. It has been 24 years since that wretched day, and I haven't gotten over it. I know my experience cannot be measured against the actually being in a war or what the police and firefighters might see on their jobs. But I can never block out the sight of people jumping from the towers and never getting over the smell of that lingered for months. It's pretty bad. From the time I saw the first plane hit to the ferry ride to Long Island to get out of the city, I will never forget. My suit was covered in soot, as were several other passengers, and there was not a word spoken during the whole ride. When I took the Long Island Railroad train home that day, the last train out of Brooklyn, it was exactly that way. People, I said it last year. It seems so ridiculous that we think someone's pronouns or what a golf is called is actually important when something like this happened. I knew about 18 people who died that day, some close friends and some business acquaintances. It has left an indelible mark on me that will last until I am gone, and more people are dying from the effects of that day. Never forget. God bless America.
Hi, my name's Tim Hodge, and I'm going to tell you a story that goes back 40 years ago. 40 years ago was my first day in basic training in the Air Force. I didn't know the significance of September 11th on that day. And 16 years later, I was celebrating 16 years in and on my last 4 when September 11th happened. That was the first day of endless deployments for the next 4 years until I got out of the Air Force. And when I got out, I decided to do something every year on that day to remember those that passed and those I served with. And because each day you don't know what it brings, just like I didn't know on that first day 40 years ago what the significance of that day would be to me and to the world, I plead with each of you today, make a commitment to never forget, live a little more, love your ones around you a little bit more, tell them that you love them, and do something each September 11th to remember those people and try to make the world a better place than you found it. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to continue the ceremony and place, as we do every year, place a wreath at our monument, at the steel that we acquired from Tower 1 many, many years ago. And we have proudly taken care of members, and even civilians have come and worked at this memorial, which we are so grateful for, our own members. And there was a woman that came down here all the time trimming the bushes, and it does my heart good to see this continuing. So I would ask Sean Rigsby. Sean, where are you, Sean? Would you please come forward and place the wreath as you always do? For those who don't know, Sean was the mother of Dakota Rigsby, who was a member of this fire department, who was killed on the USS Fitzgerald in the Sea of Japan a few years ago.
Ready? Hey! Fire! Hey! Fire! Hey! Great cover! Freeze and fire!
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Captain Eric Graziano to please come forward to give us our ring our bells. And in the fire department tradition, when a member is lost on duty, in the line of duty, every firehouse, at least in New York, and I know it's done around the country, is a tribute of ringing the bells in the firehouse, 4 rounds of 5. This time I'd like to just have a moment of silence, recall the memory of all the people we've lost on 9/11 and all those who have passed subsequently. This time I'd like to thank all the members who have worked so hard to make this ceremony possible, and thank everyone for coming out and joining us in remembrance of all those people who have passed and those who are continuing to pass, who have continued to pass, and those suffering with life-altering maladies. And again, I want to thank everybody who's here, and hopefully I'll see you next year. It's going to be 25 years next year. If God gives me the grace to be here, I'll be here. And I welcome all of you to walk through the firehouse. If you've never been here, or if you'd like to, you can. And go upstairs into the maple room and enjoy some refreshments. Thank you.